Quazi here. In today's video, I want to speak to you about one of the most important laws through which reality operates. This law is known as the law of detachment. Now, in order to understand the law of detachment, we need to understand physics, in particular, how energy changes from one state to another. The first law of thermodynamics, if you can look back at your high school, college education, is the law of conservation of energy. And it states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transmuted into different forms. Now, long before Wall Street, long before banks and billionaires, there were the alchemists. Okay, men cloaked in secrecy, working by candlelight in stone chambers, all obsessed with one thing: transmutation. Now, most people think that these alchemists were trying to turn base metal into gold, right? Lead into gold. But this was not the case at all. At least not in the way that history books actually tell it. Behind their symbols and strange rituals was a hidden truth, whispered from the teachings of a figure so powerful, so mysterious, he was called the thrice greatest, Hermes Trismegistus. Now, to the Egyptians, he was Thoth, or Thoth, the god of wisdom. To the Greeks, Hermes, messenger of the divine, and legend says that he possessed a knowledge so great that it blurred the line between man and God, the ability to alter reality itself. His teachings, known as Hermetica, were passed hand to hand through secret societies and royal courts. The few who understand them seem to rise above ordinary men. Emperors, philosophers, even modern magnates have quietly traced their success back to fragments of this knowledge. And here's the strange part. The real gold was never outside, it was within. The true act of transmutation was taking the heaviest energies of human experience, fear, desire, obsession, and refining them into clarity, creativity, and power. Those who mastered this didn't need to chase fortune. Fortune came to them. That same principle is alive today, hidden in plain sight. And once you glimpse how it actually works, you'll begin to see why those who cling the least, who care the least in the way the world expects, often end up with the most. This is the art of energy transmutation, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you how it works. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing I want to talk to you about to understand the law of detachment is this concept of vairagya and abhyasa. Okay, so vairagya and abhyasa. What does this mean? The word abhyasa translates to effort. Vairagya translates to surrender. So in ancient yogic knowledge, there was a sage known as Patanjali who wrote this book collection of teachings called the Yoga Sutras. Modern yoga, as you know it today, was crafted by this sage, and Patanjali was known to be so darn intelligent that people thought that Patanjali was a collection of maybe 7 or 8 different authors, because he just had exceptional ability, knew many different languages, many different ways to communicate ideas. So people literally thought it was impossible that this would be one person, right? So the reason modern yoga is the way that it is today, and all of these sages have achieved enlightenment and all of these mystical feats, is all thanks to Patanjali. Now, what Patanjali talked about was that in order to achieve success, the highest level in any field, you need to learn to master effort and surrender, vairagya and abhyasa. Once you master effort and surrender, the intricate balance, the play between yin and yang, effort and surrender, you're going to notice that you will move the fastest path towards whatever it is that you want. And to give you an example of this, recently I started trading. And what I noticed with trading was whenever I focused on trying to make profit, I would always lose, I would always sabotage, I would always fall prey to patterns that plague most unprofitable traders, which is revenge trading, over leveraging positions, risking more than I'm comfortable risking. And so all of those I went through because my focus was on I need to make money. So what most people do when they get too much into effort is they become results oriented, right? This is the person, my horrible drawing of a person. This isn't a gun, by the way. This is the person literally trying to hammer and work hard. And this is the person who's Zen, right? So we need to achieve a balance between these two states. So when we become too results oriented, what happens? We become too focused on the outcome. We need it, and we need it now. So anytime in your life when you've tried to achieve something, just ask yourself this. When you focus on the outcome incessantly, what happened? chances are you pushed that outcome away. When you needed that sale to close, when you needed that job interview to go well, when you needed that person to text you back, you really wanted that outcome. What were you saying to yourself? You were establishing to yourself that you do not already have, and you were rushing to try and get somewhere. So a lot of the traders that I work with, and I've seen this in myself, is whenever I rush to get somewhere to achieve a milestone or an outcome, it always leads to self-sabotaging behaviors. However, when I shift my focus to doing this one thing that I'm going to share with you, this one thing, everything changed. When I went from results focused to process focused, okay? So to balance this, you must become process focused, process oriented. When you become process oriented and you focus on finding A+ setups when you're trading and only executing on A+ setups, your focus changes from I need to make profit to I need to find the perfect setups and execute on those perfect setups, okay? So your reward system completely changes from money makes me feel good, losing money makes me feel bad, to finding and executing on profitable A+ setups makes me feel good, executing on B+ setups and below makes me feel bad, right? So when we shift our focus to things that are in our control, we begin to control reality. What most people do is they focus on second order consequences. So there are two different orders of consequences. The first order consequence of me being in the right state of being is I take the right actions. That is in my direct control. What happens in my environment, whether I make profit or not, is not in my direct control. Now, what I've noticed too is there have been days where I've lost a trade, but I wasn't too mad about losing a trade because I executed on a perfect setup. But my win rate isn't 100%, it's 90%. So I lose 10% of the time. Out of 10 trades I take, there will be a trade that I lose even though all of the stars align and it was the perfect setup. What I noticed though is in the past when I would lose, I would try to revenge trade and try to make the money back. But when I became a profitable trader, what happened was I shifted my focus to only executing on perfect A+ setups, right? And so when I executed on that A+ setup and it still failed, I still felt proud of myself because I was like, this was everything aligned. It was just one of those 1 out of 10 trades that just didn't work out for whatever reason, right? So when you shift your focus from I need to make money to the thing that actually makes money, you will become successful, okay? When you become process oriented and every single day you show up and you just execute on your process, if you keep compounding that, what do you think is going to happen? Few months from now, a year from now, you're going to see where you end up. Especially when I started on this journey to making YouTube videos and my first, biggest hurdle was business, right? Making a consistent revenue, making consistent income. I noticed that in May of 2019, six years ago, when I first started, that was the worst month in business that I had. I didn't make any money at all, okay? And I realized was my focus that month was on trying to make money to prove to my parents that I could sustain myself doing this, right? That I didn't need to go to that job that I just quit, that I handed my resignation letter to, right? I didn't need to go back to that. Okay, so I had a lot of pressure to perform and to prove something. Have you ever noticed, like even if you were a trader, like when you try to prove something, you always sabotage. When you try to prove something, when the ego takes over, there's always sabotage. There's nothing to prove. When you assume abundance, there is nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove to others, you have nothing to prove to yourself. Give up trying to prove something. Assume that you already are. Assume that you already are the success that you want to achieve in the future. It is happening now. You have become that person now. So the first order consequence is you executing on those actions. And when you stay true to the first order consequences, the second order consequences show up. Going back to the month of May 2019, when I had something to prove, I was focusing on the second order consequence of making money. I desperately needed to make money, that 5K a month, to prove to my parents that, hey, look, I can do this. Now you can get off my back and you don't have to be so not proud of me, right? So disappointed in me. I don't have to be the disappointment anymore because look, I made it work. Are you proud of me now? Do you love me now, right? So what happened was that month, because I was so focused on the second order consequence of trying to make money, every single prospective client I spoke with, my offer fell flat, right? No one resonated with it. No one said yes. Everyone said no. And at the end of that month, I remember just being completely depressed, and it was the worst month of my life, and I cried, and I did feel this huge weight shift because my worst fear had come to life. I made nothing, and this is rock bottom. And this is why the law of detachment works the way that it does. When you have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. When you have nothing to lose, you open yourself up to receiving the blessings of the universe, right? So that month, when that happened, I opened myself up to receiving blessings. And the following month, I had nothing to hold on to. I had nothing to prove. I'm like, hey, I'm already the loser that I was afraid of. I'm no longer resisting being this loser anymore. And what do you think happened when I stopped resisting being a loser? I no longer fed that energy. I could just focus on moving forward towards the outcome that I wanted to get to, right? So what happened as a result of that was June of 2019 was my first ever $8,000 month. July was my first ever $12,000 month. August was my first ever $21,000 month. And by Jan of 2020, I had my first $110,000 month, right? And ever since that, I've been making $100,000 to $200,000 a month. So what I noticed from that was when I stopped focusing on second order consequences of the outcome, the result, and just focus on the first order consequence of me showing up and making these videos and actually giving value, right? Because money is a byproduct of value. When you give enough value and you create enough value in the marketplace, in business, you create wealth, you create money. In trading, when you execute on your process perfectly, the profits come, right? So you need to focus, you need to shift your focus from results to process. That is how you balance Vairagya and Abhyasa. Now, there is an important question that comes up here, which is how much do I focus on my effort, right? How much should I focus on effort? You know, when do I know to lay off, to surrender, to take it easy? Let's get to that right now. Before I get to that, I wanted to announce you can access our exclusive email list where I can share updates, personal updates that I can't share anywhere else. You can go to realitycreator.com/list to access that. And upon joining, you're going to get access to our proprietary Identity Shifting Bootcamp. It's a 5-video series that outlines how I made the shift in my life to being where I am today. So you can go ahead and access that. And our clients, people who just watch this channel for free, have gotten amazing results just out of going through that bootcamp. So you can go ahead and access that right now. It's totally free for you to access. And let's get to the next part right now, learning when to take action. Okay guys, I really want you to pay attention to this because this is something my mentor taught me a while ago and I recently just remembered. He taught me about this concept called S-curves. So in business and in life, you will encounter S-curves. So what I mean by that is the second thing I wanted to discuss was MYE, which stands for maximum yield on your efforts, maximum yield on efforts. If you notice right now that no matter how much action you take, you're pushing against a wall that's become too strong and no amount of pushing and shoving is helping, well, this is what's going to change everything for you. Okay, so on the y-axis here, we have R, which stands for results or the outcome that you get, second order consequence. And on the x-axis, we have E, which is the effort, which is the first order consequence of you being in the right state of being. You in the right state of being are going to take the actions that you need to take to get the results that you want to get. Now, what you'll notice is when you get started first, you get amazing results up until a critical point. We call this the critical effort level and the critical result level. Now, after that, it flattens out. You have diminishing returns or no returns on your effort any longer. Now, what's interesting is after you figure out what I'm going to share with you and implement it, you're going to encounter a shift, a jump in S-curve. So what's going to happen is now you're going to go from here to like this until you hit your next level, right? So this is the second, let's say EC2, the second critical juncture when you figure out what's going to help you make the shift. Now, why he taught me about this S-curve was in business, in life, you will inevitably reach a plateau. This plateau, the difference between EC1, I know we're getting a little mathy here. This delta in ECs is a consolidation phase. This is the phase where you're encountered with challenge, when you're encountered with tests, trials, tribulations, whatever you want to call it, because there is a lesson that you haven't learned before you level up, okay? So when you initially start, you get beginner's luck, you see a lot of progress, but then in the middle, there's a consolidation phase where you see up and down, inconsistency until you hit your next level. Because there are certain lessons that you need to learn, life is trying to teach you, so that you can become the character that's worthy of the results you actually want to get, the next level that you want to move up to, okay? So there's 3 phases of manifestation. The first phase, you know, it's interesting that it lines up here. Phase 1 is the intentionality phase where you make the intention. Phase 2 is this delta stage, 1, 2. Phase 2 is this delta stage, which is the consolidation or the gestation phase, where you get tested. You may even see downwards happening here. Phase 3 is the deliverance or fruition stage, where you actually get the outcome that you want, or you level up, right? So why I'm sharing this with you is there are two main components that will help you understand how to make these shifts, how to coordinate through those periods where you're going through delta or coordination or consolidation, right? The first thing is you have to notice that your focus has completely shifted from I am responsible for my success. I need to do something for my success. Everything is on my shoulders. So your focus has become that. Initially, when you started, you were playing a game and it was fun. Now it's become too much of a duty. It's become too serious. You've gone too much into abhyasa or effort, right? The game has become too serious. It's time to show yourself it's a game. So the focus needs to shift from how can I achieve this to how does this get achieved of its own accord? Okay, so own accord. Instead of focusing on what do I do that achieves this goal, focus on how does this get achieved regardless of my interference, right? So there is two types of intentions. I got this from a book called Reality Transurfing by an author called Vadim Zealand, one of the greatest books on manifestation, reality creation, and quantum physics that I've read. And what he says is there are two types of intentions we all possess. Inner intention, which is my resolve to do something and launch an attack on the world, aka massive action. And the second type of intention is outer intention, which is the intention that both belongs to me and doesn't belong to me at the same time. The godly intention, the intention that made Jesus Christ walk on water and the mountains move to Muhammad, right? So when we act within the confines of inner intention, we inevitably reach a plateau in our efforts. But then when we tap into outer intention, all of these synchronicities and magical things happen in life. If you've ever noticed a time in your life where all of these unexplainable synchronicities were happening, it's because you were tapping into the power of outer intention, right? You couldn't explain how it was happening because the ego shut down and the heart, your true source of power, the feminine side of you, was open to receiving these wonderful gifts, right? So when that happens, when you focus on how the goal gets achieved of its own accord, you are living in that state of outer intention. You're operating from outer intention as opposed to inner intention. When you focus on how I achieve the goal, that's inner intention. When you focus on how does the goal get achieved by itself, all you need to do is simply ask this question. How does this problem get solved by itself? How can I conceive of this issue that I'm going through getting solved by itself, right? That's number one. The second part to this, when you're focusing on how the goal gets achieved by itself, and you can actually conceive of it because you keep asking it enough, you're going to notice how it does get achieved by its own accord, okay? The second part to this is dispassionately acting, meaning you put one foot in front of the other. You focus on the goal and you just dispassionately execute on your process, just like you would if you're trading. It doesn't become emotional anymore. You don't move up and down. It doesn't have to be so inspiring or so unmotivating. You simply show up and you have this calm, cool sense of I'm putting one foot in front of the other. For years, I made these YouTube videos. When I show up to making these videos, I let go of any expectation that I have of, oh, this is going to be a great video. This is going to be a bad video. I make the intention of I'm going to make a wonderful video, and then I let it go and I simply show up and I act dispassionately and everything simply flows through me, right? When I'm trading, same thing. I make the intention before the task itself, what I want to achieve gets achieved of its own accord. And then when I'm on the charts, I simply just show up and I'm present to the moment, to the opportunity flow, and it just happens by itself, right? So dispassionate action is what's necessary. So you put one foot in front of the other instead of trying to correct course every micro millisecond and making these micro adjustments. There's a time for reflection, there's a time to make an intention, and there is a time to act. When you're acting, you simply show up and put one foot in front of the other, and subconsciously the corrections get made. The only thing I can really liken this to is playing golf. When you're at the range, you're making all of these corrections, right? You're conscious, you're interfering. You're not like there's a lot of friction because you're learning a new movement. But then when you go out onto the course from the range, you let go of all of that. You trust that the work that you've done at the range will show up on the course. And more often than not, when you let go and you just focus on the target and what you want to move towards and your routine and you're dispassionate about it, you just execute on your routine, that's when the outcome shows up. Okay? So these are the two keys that I believe will help you make leaps in these S-curves much quicker than not. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. I hope this was helpful. If you're new to the channel, please let me know what you thought of this. I love to hear your thoughts. We make these videos so that we can help every single human being on earth to master their destinies. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this. And if you could share this with a friend, that would be wonderful, because we're trying to get this message out to as many people as possible, as many friends as you can. I know that if you share, they're going to be more excited and more motivated to watch it, as opposed to them discovering it by themselves. Okay. If you would like to take this teaching deeper, I have made a comprehensive video on quantum physics and how it's allowed me to make $8 million by the age of 28. All you need to do is click right here and it will take you to the video. It's literally on YouTube. So I will see you in this next video right now. Thanks.